What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton competed the entire 2025 season with a literally broken car, and no one at Ferrari noticed it until the last day? Stay, because what Leclerc and Vasseur discovered in Abu Dhabi not only shakes the Scuderia's engineering, it also exposes an internal wound that will change everything by 2026. The 2025 season ended, as it usually does, with the deceptive tranquility of the Yas Marina circuit. But that calm was only superficial. While the floodlights still illuminated the empty paddock, a small group of Ferrari engineers and managers analyzed the data collected during the post-season tests. What they found not only explained an entire season of frustrations, but it uncovered a catastrophic failure that no one had seen coming. And it all started with an anomaly that only a driver with an extraordinary technical level could have detected: Lewis Hamilton. For months, Hamilton had noticed something he couldn't fully explain. A strange, almost imperceptible sensation in high-speed corners. Something didn't add up. At Mercedes, these types of perceptions were not ignored. They became technical missions. At Ferrari, on the other hand, a driver's intuition could take a backseat if the data did not immediately confirm it. But what happened in Abu Dhabi FP3 was too obvious to ignore. At more than 280 kilometers per hour, the SF25 destabilized violently. Hamilton barely had time to react. Something bent in the front and broke the back, he radioed seconds later. What seemed like an emotional phrase resulting from shock turned out to be an accurate mechanical description. When engineers analyzed the telemetry, they found the pattern, and it was not a specific error. It was a design flaw that had been present all season, a critical loss of structural rigidity in the chassis, specifically at the junction between the monocoque and the front suspension. This weakness only manifested itself under prolonged and sustained lateral loads, such as those that occur in fast constant radius curves. It did not appear in wind tunnels. It did not arise in static simulations. It could only emerge under real racing conditions, and with a driver who knew how to interpret them. In those moments of maximum demand, the monohull began to flex. It was not a superficial vibration. It was not an aerodynamic instability. It was the skeleton of the car itself giving way, completely altering the behavior of the vehicle. The consequence was devastating. The front axle literally lost contact with the ground for critical milliseconds. The aerodynamic flow under the car was broken. The front load was fading, and the entire balance of the car collapsed. This discovery was not only technical, it was existential. How could he go unnoticed all season? How is it possible that a structure like Ferrari, with almost unlimited resources and decades of experience, has not detected such a profound anomaly? The answer reveals a problem bigger than a simple structural failure, a conflict between perception and data, between the pilot's intuition and blind dependence on simulations. In that clash of visions, Ferrari lost valuable months in which Hamilton asked, without success, that the car's response under extreme conditions be reviewed. Because at that moment, Leclerc not only understood what was happening with the SF25, he also realized how long he had been running in fear without knowing it. How many times had I stepped on the accelerator with subconscious uncertainty? How many times had he managed to keep the car on the track by pure instinct, without realizing that he was bordering the technical abyss in each fast corner? The question that haunted him that night was brutal. How many times was I millimeters away from an accident like Hamilton's without knowing it? Beyond fear, what he felt was betrayal. Because he understood that he had been raising red flags all year, and no one had taken them seriously. The work system around it was designed to interpret what the data allowed it to see, but it ignored what the pilots could feel. In that system, it didn't matter how accurate your feedback was if the graphs didn't support it. It was a model that prioritized apparent perfection over the real understanding of the dynamic behavior of the car. And that, in a team like Ferrari, is a profound cultural failure. Leclerc could no longer see the SF25 as a car. Now I saw it as a symptom, a reflection of a technical environment that had stopped trusting the sensitivity of its own pilots. Because if not even a two-time world champion like Hamilton had managed to be heard until the end, what chance did he have? That was the biggest emotional blow. Discovering that I was not fighting alone against McLaren, Red Bull, or the expectations of the fans. I was fighting an internal culture that normalized distrust. That he preferred to assume his own mistakes rather than open the possibility that the problem came from the car. And for a driver like Leclerc, who has built his entire career on precision, perfectionism, and absolute commitment to his team, that was devastating. The Abu Dhabi revelation transformed him. He was no longer just Ferrari's star driver. He was a direct witness to a systemic failure. And what he did from that moment on would not only define his future, but the future of the team to which he had given everything. Lewis Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari was not simply a transfer of talent. It was a collision of two completely different worlds. On one side, the seven-time world champion, forged in the obsessive precision of Mercedes, where every detail is a critical component of success. On the other, the most legendary team in the history of Formula One, full of emotion, tradition, and a structure that for years has mixed passion with politics, intuition with pride, innovation with nostalgia. The union was promising but also dangerous, because Ferrari didn't sign Hamilton solely to win races. Without fully knowing it, he signed him up to undergo a transformation. From his first day in Maranello, Hamilton did not act like a star, acted as a technical auditor. He started asking awkward questions, requiring deep analyses where before cursory explanations were enough. He was not satisfied with, "the car is within parameters." It required seeing the complete dynamic behavior, curve by curve, sector by sector. He requested overlapping data between sessions, not only for his own performance, but to contrast it with Leclerc's. He questioned the logic behind certain aerodynamic decisions. He proposed changes in the simulation methodology. And most importantly, it required constant correlation between track, simulator, and wind tunnel. This inside Ferrari was like turning on a bright light in a dusty room. Many processes that were considered normal were exposed as inefficient. Departments that operated with their own criteria began to receive external pressure for the first time. Hamilton did not ask for respect. It generated it. He didn't need to impose authority. His record spoke for him. And that presence forced Ferrari to examine itself like few times in recent years. During the first half of the season, the results were not coming. And that was part of the tension. Because while the car was not competitive, the contrast between Hamilton's method and Ferrari's became more evident. Often in technical meetings, Hamilton was the only one speaking in terms of vibration frequency analysis, mass distribution under lateral torsion, or suspension transient response under sustained loading. They weren't just complex words. They were symptoms of a focus that did not remain in the visible, that dug even the invisible. This methodological change found its breaking point in Abu Dhabi. It was there where, thanks to his constant insistence, the team executed a series of instrumented tests beyond the usual protocol. It was Hamilton who proposed extending the reading of sensors in areas of the chassis that were previously considered stable. And it was that initiative that made it possible to detect the structural failure that had condemned the SF25 throughout the season. A defect that, without his clinical gaze, would have remained buried between layers of normal data. What he revealed didn't just affect the car. He exposed the entire structure. Because it showed that Ferrari for years had operated under a dangerous combination of blind trust in its models and deaf distrust of the sensitivity of its drivers. The figure of Hamilton acted as a living cognitive dissonance. His mere presence made it impossible to continue with the same justifications. It was an uncomfortable mirror, one that reflected what Ferrari had ceased to be, an institution where the driver is at the center of engineering. The result was immediate. Technical meetings became more rigorous. The correlation between data and the pilot's sensations became a priority. Internal hierarchies began to restructure. Hamilton's arrival caused several key engineers to raise their game, while others simply couldn't adapt and left the team. It was not a superficial change. It was a re-engineering of culture. But perhaps the greatest legacy of this impact is not in the timetable. It is in the transformation of Ferrari into an organization that finally began to listen deeply. Not to ignore what the pilot feels simply because the sensor does not measure it. To accept that modern F1 cannot depend exclusively on predictive models. And that sometimes, the voice of an experienced pilot is more valuable than 1,000 simulations. Thus, Hamilton not only brought with him experience, titles, and prestige. He brought a philosophy. A way of understanding competition as a constant search for answers, not as a blind defense of the status quo. And thanks to that, the SF25 disaster was not just a bitter ending. It was the catalyst for a new stage. One in which Ferrari will no longer be able to say that it did not know how to improve. Because now he has someone who has taught him how to look in the right place. What happened in Abu Dhabi was not the end of a season. It was the beginning of the true diagnosis. And in that sense, what seemed like just a closing of the calendar became the inaugural act of an internal revolution. Because the data not only confirmed a technical failure, they confirmed something much more dangerous: Ferrari's loss of institutional sensitivity. The disconnection between what its pilots feel and what its engineers interpret. The divorce between the track and the screen. For years, Ferrari has lived trapped between two worlds. One, that of its glorious history, where the name of the team prevails above any individual. And another, that of modern Formula One, where championships are decided in millimeters, in simulations, in surgical decisions that are made based on what the driver feels even before the car registers it. This tension has turned Ferrari into a powerful machine, but out of sync. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton did not cure that dysfunction. He revealed it. He forced her to the surface. And with it, a painful truth also emerged for everyone within the team. They had ignored the direct testimony of their own runners for months, especially that of Charles Leclerc, who at times seemed to be shouting in a room where no one was listening. Now that silence has been exposed. Leave me in the comments what you think about all this.